I'd like to give us an example, though, that comes from the Bible about whys. And the example I want to go to is the example of Job. And I want to start with the unseen part of the story. You see, my whys, I didn't see all of the unseen things that God was doing. I didn't know about, on August 4th, the letter being written that I was accepted to college. I didn't know about the monies that would come in that would allow me to go. I didn't know about my future. I didn't know about the education. Otherwise, I'd have been out trying to find a job somewhere in Indiana and may have forever been a plowboy, a factory worker, a carpenter, something. I don't know. But God had a greater purpose for me, and hopefully you have benefited from God's greater purpose for me. I know that I have benefited from God's greater purpose for me. So I want to start with Job because there's an unseen part of the story. We read about Job, but behind the scenes something was going on. That is, Job, Satan comes up. He's, as it were, trying to provoke God, as it were. And God says, well, have you considered my servant Job? And Satan, of course, yeah, right. This guy serves you only because you give him good things and you take care of him. And, of course, we know the scenario. But God in all of this says, look, as he's going to do these things, you cannot take his life. You cannot take his life. He's going to, he will live through all of these things. Actually, he will live to see a better day. But in the meantime, it may be a bit rough for Job, and indeed was. So we see God's involvement from the good to the bad, to the good to God. We see his involvement there. And when we question God, though, the point I want to help us to see, that maybe we can see from the book of Job, that when we question God, oftentimes we come from a righteous position. For example, when I was questioning God, I was telling him he didn't do what I think he ought to have done, when and how he ought to have done it. It wasn't just why. It is, I wouldn't have done this way. This is not only ridiculous, how could you do it now? Your timing is terrible. Now, let me remind you, I was the kid at 16 who prayed that my father would die. Yes. Aren't I glad he didn't do that when I asked him? There were some lessons to be learned in all of that. So you see, we have this righteous position. And I think that maybe Job will help us to see this a little bit better. So I want to start in Job chapter 27. And now, the answer to why is not because. I remember in 8th grade, our history teachers kept saying, well, the answer to why is because. She said it in passing. I waited all year long for that question to be on the test because I was thinking, I'm the only one that's going to remember because, and I'm going to get it. She never did ask that question, and I was aggravated with her all year long because I thought I had the answer to the question that she was going to slip in as a surprise question because it made sense to me. Because. Anyway, Job chapter 27. So Job continued his discourse, and he says this, as surely as God lives, who has denied me justice. Now, when we think about whys, oftentimes, we tend to think that God is unfair, that justice has been denied to us. The Almighty who has made me taste bitterness of soul. Wow, that's pretty powerful. And why would he think that he is tasting bitterness of soul through all of the situation? As long as I have life within me, the breath of God in my nostrils, my lips will not speak wickedness, and my tongue will utter no deceit. I will never admit you are in the right. I will never admit you are in the right. Till I die, I will not deny my integrity. I have held the course. I think there's some questions and why sometimes when we recognize the integrity kind of goes down the tubes. Because we do have these questions. My conscience will not reproach me as long as I live. I have full integrity. I will not do wickedness. My conscience is clean. I know that I am right. I thought I was pretty right that day too in my questions to God. God, this isn't the right time. Now let's take a look a little as we go on further here. Job's, I call it a self-portrait. He's painting himself. Chapter 29. And beginning here in verse 1. Job continues his discourse. Now Job just keeps on talking. Job keeps on digging his hole. Which isn't bad, brethren, because sometimes when we have the opportunity to talk and say what's really on our mind, that is when we come to a better understanding of who we really are, what's really going on, and then we have a lot more honest relationship with God. And we can say, you know, I heard myself now, and this is what I'm really all about. So it isn't all bad. So how, he says here, verse 2, how I long for the months gone by, for the days when God watched over me. Which is saying, in this case, God is not watching over. That's not true. We all know that because we know the behind the scenes things. But he's thinking, God is not watching over me. When his lamp shone upon my head, and by his light I walked through darkness. When things were good, I didn't have a lot of whys to God. Because I knew the whys. Well, why am I blessed? Because I am righteous. I walk in God's way. I do those things. He says, oh, for the days when I was in my prime. Now, I think about us in our youth. We think, oh, my, when I was strong, I could do this. When, I was young and tall, dark, and handsome, or short and beautiful, or whatever it might be. When I was in my prime, when God's intimate friendship blessed my house, when the Almighty was still with me, which indicates he doesn't think God is with him in his why, and my children around me, when my path was drenched with cream. This is like I'm really living in the land of milk and honey. I've got cream all over. I've got the cream of everything. And the rock poured out for me streams of olive oil. When he was blessed, didn't have a lot of whys, but now he does. And he sees this as being blessings in and of themselves at this particular time. Now Job has a change of luck by chapter 30, as it were, and this is not just a change of luck, but Job's life changes. Chapter 30, verse 1. Oh, I've got to read on a little bit more because this is important in Job 29. He says, when I went to the gate of the city and I took my seat in the public square, the young men saw me and stepped aside. And the old men rose to their feet. And the chief men refrained from speaking and covered their mouths with their hands. It's like Job is here. When Job speaks, E.F. Hutton speaks, everybody listens. This man is really, really wise.
Feeling the blues today or tired of life already? Do you have questions about life or need spiritual advice? We can help. Log on to worldwidechurchofgod.com or wcgfairfield.blogspot.com and stay connected to reality. The Worldwide Church of God in Fairfield, Santa Rosa, and Modesto are located in the San Francisco Bay Area, regarded as the most prosperous region in the United States. We believe Jesus Christ when he proclaimed in Matthew 6:24 that serving God is more important than serving mammon. We welcome everyone to come and worship and fellowship every Saturday at the times listed on your screen and on our website, worldwidechurchofgod.com.